Good morning, everyone. This is Johnny Girardi, DataSelf founder and CEO of DataSelf. Thank you very much for joining Analytics for Sage 500 webinar. Just before we start, a little overview of why we're here and why DataSelf BI is doing this. I actually started working with business intelligence and analytics in this mid-market back 13 years ago. And when I was invited to join this industry, back then, I have a electric engineering background, and I did a lot of programming in my early career. And eventually, I moved to the business area. I did MBAs and became a business person. And when I was invited to join, business intelligence and analytics, I was surprised that, reporting was such an ordeal for business people. And the reason was simple. I mean, I was a technical person as a background, so for me, reporting was not an issue. I could do it. But again, I was a programmer, so I was comfortable with all the technicalities involved with reporting. But then my peers, my business people, most of them, they're not computer savvy. They just sometimes use computers for emails, web browsers, and that's it. So when these people needed reporting, they usually would have to call someone else, and usually would take a long time until the reporting need was fulfilled. And then I was thinking, wow, yes, I mean, decision makers need information, and usually, if they need data, they need to rely on someone else, and that's not efficient. So I bought into the vision, and one of my goals, personal goals, as I walked through this journey of business intelligence was, hey, I want to be sure that my company comes up with a solution that really is easy to use, that is really intuitive, where business people who have no technical background can feel empowered, can easily access this information, and they can even change things, build things on the fly without calling someone else. So that's my vision from the beginning of this whole thing. In 2005, I founded DataSelf, and through several interactions, we've been refining our solution, and what we're going to see here today is the latest and greatest. And I'm sure you're going to find that this solution, as we call, is the Ferrari of analytics in the ERP market. We are the faster, the easier to use, the most sophisticated, the most empowering. So that's a little overview of where we are and why we're here. Let's get started. So I should spend a few minutes talking about why analytics for Sage 500, and then we're going to jump into the product presentation and spend most of the time showing how DataSelf Analytics works. And then at the end, we're going to open a Q&A session. So why are people here? Well, most likely because you're facing traditional reporting challenges. Most likely you're using Crystal, Access, or Excel, or things like that, where it's very labor intensive to build reports or to change reports. Usually you have to have more than one person involved, the business person needing the report, and then a more technical person taking care of it. And sometimes it takes a long time to get the report ready for the business person. It's just labor intensive, and sometimes it even runs very slowly. So why organizations turn to analytics? In a simple word, is to empower business people. It goes back to my vision, as I mentioned. Business people are often not tech savvy, and they have to rely on someone else. With our solution, most of the reporting needs can be tackled by business users, no IT involved. Specifically for Sage 500, we have a comprehensive out-of-the-box solution that covers many different reporting and analytics needs out of Sage 500, and these are some of the modules available out of the box. I'm not going to jump into any one of them, but if you have needs that fall into some of these buckets, we can schedule one-on-one presentations down the road to discuss them more specifically and address your specific needs. Most of the time, people that come to these webinars, they have a broad background, and then we like to focus in one of these areas which most people can relate to. in the area we're going to be focusing today is sales. You may not be from sales, don't worry, we'll also show how the solution works from a framework using sales as an example, but those ideas as far as analytics play around with any different module. So on the sales analysis, for instance, one of the most basic functionality people want to analyze in sales is just sales profitability, quantity sold and shipped by different we call sales dimensions, like by customer, by product, by salesperson, by territory. If you're looking from a purchasing standpoint, it would be like by vendor, by warehouse. So you're analyzing just your basic reporting parameters using your core information out of your Sage 500 information. Now, you may be looking also at how efficiently you are processing your orders in issuing invoices. So let's say if it takes some time from shipping products because you have inbound and outbound challenges, then there may be an issue that you may want to focus and see if you can get it improved. So analytics can help you checking how many days it's taking to order your products. Is it delayed? Is it beforehand? Very easy to do using analytics solution. Usually when you're selling some kind of product, most likely you have salespeople, and most likely they're being compensated by commissions. So analyzing commissions and having proper setup so you can control this very easily is something that analytics can do a great job, and we'll show a little bit of that as we go through the product presentation. Forecasting, you may be forecasting your sales, you may be forecasting your inventory, you may be forecasting your budgeting, your GL expenses, many ways that this tool can also help forecasting based on prior, numbers, using future numbers and user-defined information as well. Finally, sometimes you're trying to gather information for your analysis. On the sales example, you may have point of sale systems that you want to combine with your Sage 500 information. You may have data coming from your clients. Maybe you're selling to big box retailers that you want to bring that information to your analysis. So data integration for sales, for again, inventory, purchasing, financials and so forth, sometimes is critical. And this platform provides great ways to do data integration. Now, let's talk a little bit about the DataSelf Analytics per se. And as I mentioned, we have been delivering this functionality for over 13 years now. And our track record is, on average, business users can tackle more than 70% of their own reporting needs without calling for IT. And this is really very, very exciting because myself, as I set the vision for the company, and we have this track record where we have CEOs, we have VP of sales, CFOs, operations people that actually can do things today with their data that before would require, IT support. So very exciting to see the vision being fulfilled. Over the years, over 13 years of building this solution, we have put together a very comprehensive set of, reports, KPIs, and dashboards out of the box. If you get the whole solution for Sage 500, you get more than 2,000 out of the box, and we'll show some of them as we go to the presentation. So let's go for the product presentation. Let's do a test drive in our Ferrari, and I'm going to be showing 3 different pieces of the solution. First of all, I'm going to show secured access, how typically business people have access to to DataSelf Analytics. Then I'm going to show some example of pre-configured key performance indicators. And finally, I'm going to show the most exciting part of the presentation, which is how easy it is for a non-technical person to build a dashboard from scratch. So let's take this Ferrari for a spin. So let me first go to the web framework. And this is like a web portal, a DataSelf Analytics web portal. Typically, business users consume the reports through either web portal, a web browser, or through mobile devices, such as, let's say, an iPad or an iPhone. when they log in to their portal, there are actually 3 levels of security in the first place. First of all, the information is highly secured. Like, we always have secured connections to the web server, being internal in your intranet or in the cloud, so it's highly secured. No way to hack this information. Only people with the proper web address and credentials can log to this portal. Then the second level of security kicks in, which is when I log into this portal, I can only see dashboards that are associated to my account. In my example here, I'm a salesperson, so I'm seeing the sales team dashboards, and I have a bunch of dashboards here for the whole sales team. Now, when I click off one of the dashboards, I'm going to do this right now, then the third layer of security kicks in, and that is, for instance, if I have access to all sales dashboards, when I open one of them, I would only be able to see my own accounts. So if I'm the West Coast manager, these would be my top customers by sales this year to date, only to the West Coast. While, let's say, this my coworker, which handles the East Coast, this person opens the same dashboard, but this person only gets the accounts related to the East Coast. Let's say the VP of sales opened the same dashboard, and because this person sees across all accounts, he or she will be able to see, the top customers across all the regions. So these are 3 level securities. The first one is just the data being secured against hackers. The second bucket is when you log in, you can see only your team's dashboard. You can be on finance team, on purchasing team, inventory team, supply chain team, whatever it is, you only get your dashboards. And when you click a specific dashboard, then you can only see your own information. So distribution information works that way, regardless if you are on a web browser, on mobile devices, or even on the desktop application. Now, let me show some examples of the out-of-the-box dashboards we have available, and I'm going to be focusing on sales here. So one of them I just showed, which was the top customer by sales. And this is pretty straightforward. You open a dashboard, you see your top customers by sales. In this example, the size of the bars relates to how much sales I have this year to date, while the color of the bar is represented by a profitability schema. So here I could tell that actually my largest client has a fairly low profitability, and that could be a problem. Maybe not, or it could be a profitability. So insightful ways of looking information. Now, let me show some other more intriguing dashboards we have available out of the box for sales analysis. This is one of the most intriguing that we have. If you have recurring customers, this report is showing top customers by sales increase and decrease on a given period. In this case, we're looking at sales change this year to date minus prior year to date. This could be quarter, comparison, or same period this year versus last year. So what you can tell here is these customers are growing the most in sales since last year. And most likely, this is great. Most likely our salespeople are on top of them. They're really being taken care of, getting calls back, getting products, all happy clients. Now, how about the ones declining the most in sales since last year? There'll be some problems here. Maybe, we're not serving these clients so well. Maybe the competitor is taking them away. So if we don't know who they are, we may lose them for good. So keeping track of top growth and decline. In this example, I'm showing sales decline, but maybe you could be looking at, expenses, top growth and decline expenses, or you name it. Usually, keeping track of them is critical for any business operation. And out of the box, we have lots of reports taking care of, top decline, top of metrics. Let's take another one, at another example of out of the box solution. And I'm going to look now at the no sales report. No sales is actually a type of, we call exception reporting. Exception reporting shows initiatives that are no longer happening. In this example, I'm showing customers, regular customers who were buying in the past, but are no longer buying the last 30 days. So if they are recurring customers, why they were buying before and they're buying no more. Maybe it's okay. Maybe some are seasoned. Maybe it's something wrong. Maybe again something is not happy. The comparison is taking them away. So knowing why certain activities are no longer happening can be critical for business. And again, we have lots of reports and KPIs out of the box ready to go for you to focus on those initiatives. In all of these dashboards, they are very interactive. So suppose, I was looking at this dashboard here, looking at my own customers who are buying the last 60 days, but not in the 30 days. And I have a lot of accounts, and I just want to focus in a specific area. I could mark the area, just let's say this state here, and now it gives me a summarized list of customers from that state that meet the criteria. And then now I could, suppose I would be traveling to that state. Now I know who I should be calling and working the problem to see if there is something we can fix. So anyway, everything that I showed here with a web browser, we can also do on mobile devices. Now, the really beauty of DataSelf Analytics is how easy it is for people to build this dashboard from scratch. And what I want to convey here today is not so much, telling that, we want business people to build dashboards. Sometimes they're too busy. They just don't have time to do that. That's great. They're supposed to be selling. They're supposed to be managing people. But those business people who want to be empowered, who want to be doing the job themselves, maybe they are in a meeting in front of a client with an iPad discussing opportunities, and then there's a question about what's going on. They can pop their iPad and do the thing by themselves. So what I want to show you here next is, if you want to do it, you're going to be able to see that you can. It's not complicated. It doesn't take a lot of training. Some business people can actually do the job and can learn it without training. So that's what I want to show, how easy the solution is. So let's go for the next part of the presentation and show how to build a dashboard from scratch. And here we have the DataSelf Analytics desktop client, which is the tool who provides full functionality to build these dashboards. And the first interesting thing to talk about is this data panel. The data panel is where you are connected to, in this case, in your Sage 500 system. And right now we're looking at sales details information. So everything that is related to sales can be part of this dashboard. For presentation purposes, we have a simplified list of reporting parameters comprised of dimensions, which are the entities, like customer, division, product, salespeople, warehouse, and so forth, as well as the measures, the numbers that you want to calculate. Now, this data panel must be really user-friendly for business. It must be like, self-help in a way. As I'm going to show, this tool has several features designed to help business people with self-help. For instance, if I open the list of customers, I see reporting subcomponents of my customers. If I open the product, I see for the product. In all, we have long descriptive names. Now, maybe, as a salesperson, as a business person, I get here, I want to build a report out of salespeople. Now, I know that, when it comes to salespeople, I have salespeople currently assigned to my customers, but I also have the salespeople information attached or stamped on an invoice. So if I'm looking at sales information 2 years ago for some report, and I want to look at salespeople information 2 years ago, do I want to see based on today's account assignment or based on who was the salesperson 2 years ago? So I may not know which one I should use. Fortunately, in this tool, if you put the mouse over a reporting parameter, you can have these pop-up windows. In this case, it shows that this salesperson is the rep recorded on the invoice. So this parameter would look at who the salesperson was 2 years ago, while if I go to the customer list and I look at the account manager, this is the rep currently assigned to the customer today. So if I look, the sales by salesperson for sales 2 years ago and I use this parameter, I'll be looking at currently assignment of the account manager. Anyway, so these pop-up windows, they can be very helpful for business people. Look at these reporting parameters and realize what they are. Like, what is gross profit, percentage gross profit? Well, that's the calculation. Sales minus cost of sales divided by sales. So very formative. The second thing that this tool is really comprehensive and helpful is when you're building a report or you ask for a report, as a business person, I want to see, let's say, some data. I want to see sales and gross profit by salespeople. But how do I want to see it? It's like a journey. You know where you're going, but until you see some data, you don't know exactly where the final destination is. And that's why if you're using 2 people to come up with a report, let's say I'm the business person and I call a consultant or an IT person to tell me, that's why it takes sometimes so many interactions to get the report ready. I don't know exactly what I want. I know where I'm going to go, and then I ask the other person. The other person spends hours, come back with the report, and then I ask for changes. The person goes back and forth, and sometimes it takes several interactions to get the report ready. Well, this tool here helps the journey. It makes it easy for the business people to figure that out. So let me go over and show that. So let me build a dashboard from scratch and show this functionality, how it works. My new dashboard will have 2 views. One will show sales and gross profit by salesperson, and then the second part of my dashboard will show sales by geography. So let's do that. So I'm going to select salesperson, and I'm going to click the control and put amount sales and percentage gross profit. So I selected those 3 pieces of information. How do I see this? Well, here is where this tool really does a great job. You see this show me button here? I can expand it, and this show me button has an engine that was designed by Stanford University professors. They study how business people look at data and what kind of data visualization techniques are best fit for different type of reporting parameters you configured. And then these Stanford University professors eventually spun off and they built a business out of this engine, and what you're seeing here is the outcome of that functionality. So let's take a spin at it. Here, because I selected those 3 reporting parameters, the show me button highlighted some data visualization approaches that will be insightful for those 3 reporting parameters. As you can tell, there is no mapping capabilities because I don't have a geography component in my reporting components. So let's just start, walk through the journey. So let's click the first approach. The first approach is simply seeing a list of reporting parameters, a grid where I see salespeople and I see numbers. So let's say if I want to see numbers by the penny, maybe if I'm looking at geography analysis, that's awesome. I'm sorry, if I'm looking at financial information, I want to see by the penny, the expenses, the GL posting, usually grids is the way to go. Now, I'm a salesperson and I want to do some charting capabilities, so I don't want to see grid, I want to see some charts. So let me click on the next option here. The next one, make boxes, bigger sales, and the color of the box relates to profitability. Kind of cool, but I'm not happy yet. So I click the next one. And anyway, you just keep on clicking on different options until you find someone that is informative for your particular analysis. And in my example, I like this one. I still have my salespeople here. I have bars for my sales amount, and I have bars for my percentage gross profit. I love this approach. Let's work with this. Now, usually, you want to spin things a little differently. So in my particular sample database, I have these 2 salespeople who are rock stars. I don't need to manage them. They have big accounts. I want to get them out of my query, so I'm going to click exclude. for both of them. So I'm excluding both of them. And then I want to sort this on a descending order. So I have these buttons here to sort things in a descending order. Beautiful. My top salespeople, profitability. I'm also a very visual person, and I like colors. So let me put the color, the percentage gross profit as a color in my color mark here. Look at that. I love this. I can easily tell, based on the profitability color schema, that I have this salesperson who is really unprofitable, and maybe this is an issue. Maybe I have to slice and dice this further. So very informative. Also, I can tell that my top salesperson, the profitability is kind of, not that great. Maybe it could be an issue, and I maybe have to work more closely with Sam to see what's going on. Anyway, as part of my dashboard, I think this query is awesome. So I'm going to rename this. I'm going to call sales and gross profit by rep. That was my first query. As you can tell, I don't need to be a technical person to build this. It's fairly intuitive, fairly drag and drop. Let me go to the next slide and create a new sheet. And now I want to do a geography analysis. I'm going to choose customer address, and I'm going to choose sales amount. Now, before I show the mapping capabilities, let me just show a little bit of, the grid functionality. So when I go to grid first, I have right now by country, total sales. And if I expand the country, I can see sales by state. So I can kind of keep on drilling down to the city level. I could go to the address, zip code, and everything else. But this is also very, very drag and drop. Let's say if I want to see this by date, I could drag date into my columns, and now I have by country, by state, sales by date. If I want to break this down by, let's say, product category, product line, I could come over here and bring product line to my rows, for instance. So now by country, by state, by product line, I see sales. So very drag and drop, or you can use the show me panel. The tool is really designed to be user-friendly for business people. Okay, so I'm back to my simple, query showing by country, by state sales, but I want to see this on a map. And fortunately, now I have the mapping capabilities enabled. I'm going to click this option here, which shows me sales using a bubble approach, which actually I find very informative. But the bubbles are a little kind of small, so let me make the bubbles bigger, increase the size of the bubbles. There you go. I like this size. Okay, very good. Now, when I'm doing my bubble analysis on a map, I like to slice and dice the bubbles by different reporting components, maybe by product line, item class, warehouse, customer type, you name it. In my sample database, I have, under my invoices, I have this deal size, which categorizes invoices by small, medium, and large invoices. So let me drag the deal size into my color mark, and then I want to tell that I want to see things using the pie chart approach. Now look at that. This is starting to get really informative. For every state, I have a bubble. The bigger the bubble, the bigger the sales. And each bubble has slices which represent the aggregation of the sales for each type of invoice size. Now, this is getting really informative. Now, is this growing or declining over the years, quarters, months, fiscal periods, weeks, moving windows, you name it? Time analysis is usually critical when you're doing your reporting. So let me show how easily we can put time analysis here. If I take document date, which in my sales analysis, for my sales is invoice date, and I drag into, let's say, my columns, for instance, what I have now is I have 3 different columns, each one for a different year, and then I see how the trend is going. And I can easily tell, in California, my sales are growing significantly, and particularly the blue slice, which is for large sales, is very big. So if that was my goal, to increase my large deals, I got to tap my back because I'm doing super well. Very cool. Okay, it's getting very informative. Now, let's keep in mind I'm building my dashboard where we're going to have this query here along with this query on a single dashboard. And let's assume that my sales force is out there in the field using iPads. Well, if I put this along with the other query on a dashboard and people look on an iPad, this one is going to be very cluttered, too little. So I don't think we're ready yet. Let me spin it a little differently. Let me drag the document date to my rows instead. Same idea, I have rows and I see the trend, but it still looks me kind of cluttered if I put it on a small screen. Let me drag the year into my pages approach where I have a bigger map. Let me put some notes here to tell what the page name is, which in this case is the period. So let's put the page name, show me the year 2012. Beautiful. Now I have a big map, and now I have this slider that I can change the slide and see what happens with my sales. Now this is getting super cool. And if I'm in a presentation, I can even put this in a loop playback and click play and just sit back and look at the numbers change and the chart changing. Now this is my Ferrari. Very cool, very informative. Again, this is year, but it could be quarter, could be months, fiscal periods, days, weeks, moving windows, you name it. All right, awesome. I love this one, very informative. I'm going to rename and call sales by state. And now let's combine both of them into a single dashboard. So I'm going to click now this icon to create a new dashboard. Here I have all the existing queries. I could have several, 4, 5, 10. And now I just drag and drop. So let's start with the map, drag and drop to my dashboard area. And I want to tell it to automatically fit to my screen size. Beautiful. Now I take the next part of the dashboard and I just drag into the area. I can drop anywhere on my left quadrant, top quadrant, right, bottom, anywhere. I'm going to put it on my left, very drag and drop, and I want to show more of the map. There we go. And the last step is I'm going to tell this is actually a filter. And I'm going to tell this is a filter. Alrighty, so I just built my dashboard, and I'm going to call this dashboard, ABC dashboard. Beautiful. Now, suppose that I build this dashboard actually for a request from my VP of Sales, which was in a meeting on the West Coast with one of the customers or with the West Coast team. So let me publish this to the server. I'm going to publish the workbook. And then here I can define which queries I want to publish, all of the queries including the dashboard or only the dashboard. So let me only select the dashboard. And here I can tell who is going to receive the query, individual users or group of people. And then you publish it. And when I do that, I publish this query to the web server. The web server can be, again, on the intranet or in the internet, let's say on a private cloud or in our own DataSelf cloud. Regardless, this would be sent to the web server. Now I could call the VP of Sales and say, hey, Mr. VP of Sales, or Mrs. VP of Sales, refresh your DataSelf Analytics dashboard. So the person refreshes it, and now they're going to be able to see. Let me see here. The ABC dashboard, and we click on it, and right there I get the same dashboard that I just saved on my desktop. So assuming the VP of Sales is using an iPad and is meeting with the West Coast people, suppose the VP of Sales is a woman. So she comes here and she gets access to the whole dashboard, but because she's only want to talk about the West Coast information, she uses her fingers on the iPad to select only the West Coast states. And now what we have is We filter down the whole dashboard to show only sales for the West Coast using the new schema size, and only the salespeople selling to the West Coast. And then she sees, oh, look at Sam, is very unprofitable. What's going on with Sam? So she can click on it. Now the dashboard only shows sales of Sam, and here we have the new legend amount. And maybe, well, we're going to see also all the unprofitable salespeople. So she selects all the reddish colors, and we get the total sales. And now we say, hey, what's going on with these clients and with these salespeople? We can actually even get the actual data. So I click here, and I'm going to see the actual data behind the transactions behind all that information. And here, I could see I just downloaded the information into a CSV file. So if I have Excel, I could open the list, and then I could slice and dice and see, salespeople. Let me see where the information is. I could see all the invoices, customers, amounts, all the details will be part of this information. Very detail oriented, that we could do further analysis. Now, if I'm back, as the VP of Sales, and let me close this window here. And suppose I have power rights capabilities. I'm a VP of Sales, but I'm savvy and I know how to slice and dice these dashboards. I can click on my tablet, the Edit button, and now what I have is a similar interface that the publisher has on the desktop, but on the mobile device or on a web. And here, suppose I'm looking at this dashboard here for my salespeople, and I want to only see the grid. So I go back and see, I want to see on the grid approach. And now I want to see by date, so I drag and drop into my my dashboard. Actually, let's put the date before my measures. So by year, I see amount, sales, and gross profit. And I want to see, let's say, product line. I can drag product lines to my dashboard. So now I see by salesperson, product lines, and then what they've been sold. And then let's say, okay, I only want to see, let's say for Sam, I want to see to which customers he sold these product lines. Well, I go to the customer list, and I drag customer name after my product line description. And then I can keep on doing this data analysis on the fly on my desktop. And let's put, and then my dashboard just keep on doing this analytics on the fly. I can do an analysis with people, answer questions without having to call the office. So this is really the empowering of the tool. Business people with little training will be able to manage to do things on the fly that today they usually have to call for IT assistance. Alrighty, so let's go back to the PowerPoint and finish it up with the presentation. Let's get here. So how do I do it? So this is the architecture working behind the scenes. We pull data from Sage 500, from CRM systems and other databases into a separate data warehouse. We massage the data to be optimized for reporting, and then we use DataSelf Analytics to deliver user-friendliness and high-performance data analysis for desktop, web, and mobile devices. As I mentioned, behind the scenes, we have the data warehouse, which we call the ultralight data warehousing. In a nutshell, the main benefits are one version of the truth. What is that about? Well, sometimes if you go to meetings and business people, they come with their own reports, sometimes people start comparing those numbers, but each report was designed by a different person, and sometimes they're using different rules to talk about the same subject. So that's not the one version of the truth. You may be comparing apples to pineapples. A data warehouse is a platform from where all information is pulled from. So all the metrics, all the business rules are calculated on the data warehouse to guarantee that when you compare your numbers, you're just looking at the single version of the truth. That's one of the main benefits. The second is a data warehouse is a database that make reporting much easier and will run most queries in seconds, regardless of the size of your database. As far as you know, ROI in pricing, so let's talk about that. In our experience delivering analytics to our clients, sometimes people ask us, so how much does this cost? Before we talk about the cost, we ask the company, if you give your business people a tool that they'll be able to make more and better informed decisions, they'll be able to get information by themselves, anywhere, anytime, they may be in the middle of a call, negotiating, and they have a question about this client or about their inventory or about their current sales funnel, they can actually find the information by themselves right there and make a more informed decision. So if your business people can do that, will they be able to make, improve the bottom line? Will they be able to sell bigger deals or more profitable deals, or will they be able to cut costs more efficiently? And if so, how much will that be? Let's say if this kind of better data analysis will increase your bottom line by 1%, how much is that? Most of our clients, they have revenues over $10 million. And when you talk about a 1% increase in the bottom line, we're usually talking about six-figure improvement. Now that's the context. Now you should look at the cost. Is our cost lower than that? If it is, it's worth it. If it is not, well, maybe you should not go for it. So having said that, once you know how much improvement in your bottom line a tool like this can give to your decision makers, this is the typical cost of our solution. You may be able to have your feet wet in a four-figure investment. Usually in the course of a year, you will end spending into the low end of the five-figure investment if you start with an entry-level system. If you have many users, if you want to give this to, let's say, 20, 30, 50, 100 people, then the solution will go into the middle range, maybe upper range of the five-figure investment. But overall, you can get with an entry-level solution into the five-figure range or low five-figure investment. All right, that was my presentation. Looks like we're right on time. We have several people on the call, so we usually don't unmute you just because to avoid hearing some elevator music in the back end. So if you have questions, you can use the GoToMeeting panel to write comments. So we already have some questions here. Let me go back to the list. One of the questions we have here is, are the tooltips provided by DataSelf or we build them? Very good question. So everything that I showed here comes available out of the box. When we install the solution, as I mentioned before, let me go back here. When we install the solution, all of these, let me go to the desktop version, which is a little better. So all of these data connectors and the tooltips, out of the box, we already have a very comprehensive setting. Usually when we deploy the solution, half of our deployments, the out-of-the-box solution is sufficient. We just need to train the customer and they take it off. The other half of our deployments, there is level of customizations. Sometimes, it can be a few hours, maybe a few days. Sometimes can be more elaborate, but we add additional functionality. Adding more components here is fairly straightforward. More than 70% of the customizations required can be done by end users. Let's say, if you want to add here a description, let's say, I want to add a description to the item description. Suppose you don't know what it is. You can right-click and say, go to default properties and add a comment, and then you write item description comes from, or you write something else. You click OK, you save it. Next time when you put the mouse over, you get the descriptions. So out of the box, we provide a lot of those information, but you will be able to customize yourselves. Another question, how about training? How long does it take? Very good question. Usually we budget 6 hours of training to get you pretty much, becoming fairly self-sufficient in many of these things that I showed you here. We have several clients that actually managed to get trained by themselves. We have extensive library of videos that you can, it's self-serve. You just, watch them at your own pace. They're very comprehensive. We have also one-on-one training that we provide as needed. Maybe once you get over the basics, you want more sophisticated, we can provide that. So most of the time, within 6 hours of training, we can get most users fairly confident, fairly self-sufficient in building and customizing their own dashboards. Very good question. Other questions here. So what is the connection with Blytheco? Oh, okay. Actually, my PowerPoint was a mistake of mine. I took a template from our prior webinar, so there's no connection with Blytheco here. It was just a little accident from my side. What else we have here? So can this application import from other data sources? Yes, this application can read from any data source. Let's see if I have here on my PowerPoint slide on the architecture. So this is the architecture of the solution. Out of the box, we already have connection to Sage 500, actually several other Sage ERP packages. We also have out of the box connection to Sage CRM and to Sales Logics. But we also can pull data from any other relational database. So yes, this is a tool that has been designed to pull data from any data source, from Excel data sources, Access, SQL, Providex, Pervasive, and so forth. What else we have here? What license required to run these reports? For example, Excel, SQL Server, very good question. So what I showed you here today is like a self-contained platform. You do not need to have Excel. You do not need to have SQL. If you don't have them, no worries. We'll install all of the components. You'll be able to see the reports using, the client tools that I showed, which is the desktop as well as the web and mobile options. If you do have Excel, and most people, they love to use Excel for some analysis, then you can have Excel 2007 or more recent versions. And it's fairly straightforward to get information into Excel. You can copy these dashboards and paste them into Excel. Very right-click copy, right-click and paste into Excel. So it doesn't matter, what tools you have. We are a Microsoft-centric platform, so we support Office, Microsoft Office, and several other Microsoft-compatible tools. I have another question here. A comparison about DataSelf and Sage Intelligence offerings. Very good question. So Sage Intelligence, today they have two different Sage Intelligence components. They have the Sage Intelligence Reporting Bundle, and also the Sage Intelligence Enterprise. Just a little history here. We have been working with Sage for 13 years, and we're very happy that, at every new Sage investment into business intelligence analytics, they have become better. And these two latest products, Sage Intelligence Reporting and Enterprise, they're both great solutions. Very affordable. We call them the Mercedes, the Beamers, the Porsches. Great cars, great pricing. If you just need the basics, go for them. They'll fulfill your needs. We are actually like a Ferrari comparing to Sage Intelligence. Our solution is faster, is more sophisticated. It has more options, but most importantly, it's easier. It's way easier to use. If you compare our solution versus theirs, you're going to see that ours really takes the user friendliness, the empowering of business people to a whole new level. Uh, in this part of my vision when I started this business, I know that business people, they are busy people. They have no time to learn much technology. If it's complicated, if they take too many clicks, they just are not going to do it. So as a business vision for DataSelf, I always look for something that takes less clicks, that is more intuitive for business people. In this solution that I just showed, it is the Ferrari. I mean, it can get easier than this. If I would have an extra 10 minutes of time, I would go into more details why this solution in the whole business intelligence market. You know, if you go to Gartner, which is one of the most reputable technology assessment companies out there, if you look at the components we're using the solution based on Gartner Magic Quadrant, the latest available for BI analytics, what we're using is the top-notch technology, being the most comprehensive and the easiest to use. So it's unprecedented user-friendly use getting with the DataSelf BI. All right, more questions. Some great questions here. Let's see here. Is this a cloud application? Good question. So let me go back here again to the architecture, and first I have to run the whole thing again. Oh, there we go. So from an architecture standpoint, this solution has three main tiers or layers. There is a data warehouse, there is the analytics server, and the client tool. So the data warehouse is pretty much all the time deployed on premises. Whatever your mass database is, you know, if it's on premises or if it's in a cloud, private cloud, this component will be in the same network. It's a local network. So could be in the cloud as long as your Sage 500 is in the cloud. But this is on premises component. The DataSelf Analytics can be deployed on premises or in the cloud. So this can be in a separate framework. If you want total control in your intranet, then this be on premises. If you have your private cloud, this could be in your private cloud, even if mass is not, if your Sage 500 is not. Or we also have our own DataSelf cloud component. So if you don't want to maintain, we have our own cloud DataSelf Analytics multi-tenant framework where, let's say, you would have your data warehouse in your own network, and then we would be sending the data extracts to the DataSelf cloud server, and then at the end of the day, your users will be accessing, you know, from that server. So we have both, you know, on-premises deployment, in private cloud deployment, and in DataSelf cloud deployment for the analytics component. Very good question, thank you. What else we have here? Okay, price per user. Price per user, good question. So the price that I mentioned before, which is, you know, in the 4 to 5 figure investment, this pretty much covers a 5-user system, usually tackling some of the reporting needs such as sales or inventory or financials, things like that. Additional users, we have 4 types of user licenses. We have the desktop user, we have the web/mobile user that is fully functional, like I just showed on the web, that I can go and slice and dice things extensively. There is the viewer license, which only allows me to view dashboards and refresh information. And the 4th bucket is only receiving, let's say, emails with dashboards attached. So they are static dashboards, but refreshed on a schedule basis. Overall, so these 4 types of users, we have different, you know, pricing. The more functionality, the more pricing. Usually, the more expensive user license would increase your cost by a few $100s per user. in all of these licenses, there are subscriptions. So it can be from a few $100s per user down to zero if you go and you buy the, we call the report distribution module, which you can send to unlimited number of users, the static dashboards. Very good question. Well, we have a few more minutes, so I'm going to take one more question. So let me see here. So can users edit and create their own measures? Very good question. Yes. By the way, just a question popped here that probably is very important. Is the $100 per user a per year or per month cost? Let me answer that one because that's a big one. That's per year cost. If you go with the yearly subscription, each user would be from zero to a few $100s per year. If you go the monthly, is usually from zero to a few $dozen, depending on the license model that you choose. So, but let me answer now the last question. As far as can user edit their own measures? So let me go back to an example here. And suppose I want to create a new measure. I can right-click and say create a calculated field. And then let's suppose I want to make amount sales divided by, I don't know, quantity shipped. So it's going to give me the average, the average cost. So this would be the average cost per unit. So I just created a new calculated measure, and now it's available. And once I create that, if I want to drag and drop into my any report, anyone who have capabilities, I just drag and drop, and now I have average cost per unit. So very straightforward. Okay, folks. So that was it. We are pretty much wrapping up. I really appreciate your questions, your insights. I still have a few questions that I wasn't able to answer, but we will be contacting each one of you on a one-on-one basis to address those questions. We will also be emailing you later today links to download this PowerPoint presentation, as well as our recording to this webinar session. And also, we will be, contacting you later to see if you see this as an opportunity. If you want any kind of, one-on-one assessment, we'll be glad to walk you through the process. I really appreciate your time and interest, and we'll be in touch.